Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to another Supatease video. Assassination Rogue on the Midnight Alpha is going to be the topic of discussion. I've spent a lot of time with this specialization in the most recent patch of The War Within, and I understand its nuance and its complexity, and I am very curious to see what Blizzard is going to be doing to address that in order to make it more accessible and approachable for a new or returning player, and what have they done to address certain pain points, and is there anything new and exciting coming to the specialization. And as always, if you want to make sure that you're staying up to date with news related to World of Warcraft, educational and entertaining content, then make sure to smash that subscribe button. Your support is greatly appreciated. So let's just start right off the bat with the new stuff, which is going to be Apex talents. So these three talents right here, which maybe they're going to get a little bit more decoration than just kind of being three circles, just a little cosmetic point of feedback, but these are your Apex talents. They just look like they're been isolated in the corner on their own, but implacable, how do I even say this word? Implacable, I assume here. Nothing will save your target from you, and venom damage increased by 10%. And when your envenom bonus expires, you will gain 40% increased energy generation for 5 seconds. Gain an additional 15% increased energy regeneration for each envenom you used, while envenom's bonus was active up to 100% total. So I think there's going to be a heavy shift and focus into envenom directly. I think they're nerfing the energy regeneration coming from your bleeds and your poisons. So previously you wanted to apply bleeds to as many targets as possible to get your energy regeneration as high as possible. But I believe they're nerfing that mechanic quite significantly, and it's maybe being compensated on the baseline talents as well. And this is sort of making it so it's less important to kind of multi-bleed, which maybe was considered too difficult, and now it's going to be more about dumping envenoms in specific windows of time for big burst damage, which is a bit of an identity shift depending on the gameplay that you want to go for. And honestly, I don't know if that's a trade like any less or more difficult, just pressing bleeds on as many targets as possible versus saving your energy and timing your window to spam envenom. Both of those seem kind of equally difficult to pull off, but it does seem to be a significant identity shift just off the rip of this. Second talent is just more bleed and nature damage, nothing too complex here. And then the final tier is after striking with Kingsbane, rapidly strike that target 5 times over 1.5 seconds for physical and nature damage, and each strike will apply lethal poisons and generate combo points. So when you press Kingsbane, you're just going to reload full combo points and be able to envenom again. So a heavy focus on Kingsbane and a heavy focus on envenom, likely leading me to believe that these are going to be basically mandatory in most cases. Kingsbane still remaining a 1 minute cooldown. However, now we can get a Regicid's reward, which is when Kingsbane ends, you're going to gain 2% haste for every 5 stacks of increased Kingsbane damage that you had, decreasing by 2% every 2 seconds. So again, big emphasis on the Kingsbane and Venom spam window. That does seem to be like the core gameplay that they're wanting to go for in this instance. And basically this row of talents here as well. Look at this: envenom damage by 30%, and envenom's effect. Synergy for while applying envenom. Envenom is already active. It increases the damage that you deal. Heavy focus around envenom and kind of that big spender, big burst window. So maybe, to me, this is kind of like comparing Feral Druid, where you're playing AoE bleed builds versus Ferocious Bite builds. This is similar, where you were previously playing like Rupture and applying that to multiple targets, and now it seems like you're focusing in on envenom a lot more exclusively. Deathmark is also changing. Still a 2 minute cooldown, except it's going to be dealing bleed damage to the target, and instead of duplicating all of your bleeds on the target and giving you a ton of debuffs above the target to try and track, it's just going to increase the damage of your active bleeds on the target. So it should be less annoying, less of an eyesore when you're using this cooldown. It still has significant, countermeasures in PvP environments, and also quite, strong limitations. The fact that it's like dedicating to just that single target, which does kind of make me wonder how good it's going to be in AoE situations, with the emphasis that they seem to be applying to envenom. And with the reductions to energy regeneration on multi-bleeds, I'm a bit curious to see how that plays off. Another change that is likely going to be felt more positively in PvE and Mythic Plus is that Crimson Tempest is no longer a combo point ability. It builds combo points rather than spends them. And it will slash enemies, and it will basically copy Garrote and Rupture onto the enemies you hit, onto 2 other enemies. So it's going to give you kind of like cleave bleed spread, basically. It's almost like soul swap for bleeds. I'm interested to see how this plays out in testing, if it actually ends up working out the way that they intend to, or if it's going to be too slow or not. But I think the idea here for Assassination Rogue is to get around the pain point of always needing to re-stealth and then reapply your bleeds in between pulls and things like that. They really want to look at that pain point and make it so that it's obviously less painful in that regard. Another change is that internal bleeding is going to be applying to Rupture. So Kidney Shot previously applied it. Now Rupture will also, so it'll be good almost at all times. You won't just have to be stunning a target to get the maximum value out of this, but you will be getting less energy returned to you from, I believe it's Venomous Wounds is the name of the talent. When your bleeds take on a poison target, you're getting less energy back in that regard. We're also getting Razor Wire for Garrote lasting longer. Obviously, PvP implications are likely going to be nerfed in PvP. But that's basically the new stuff, right? You're going to be able to kind of get this soul swap effect. So almost like redirect in a way too. Deathmark changes, Kingsbane, and Venom focus. Now when we look at reductions in complexity, one ability that's basically going away as a keybind is Cold Blood. Instead, it's going to be a passive. Critically striking with an attack that generates combo points will increase the chance that your next attack will critically strike. So if you're getting really unlucky, it's like bad luck protection. A little bit less control, and would have been insane to have that control with how many synergies I'm seeing here between Venom and stuff in terms of like getting a really big Venom window. Instead, it's just going to be passively building up over time. See if it ends up being stronger or weaker, but I do like the keybind removal, trying to line up things like Thistle Tea with Cold Blood that was a different cooldown, and then Kingsbane and then Deathmark. It was like, this is a lot. And if you wanted to macro it, they're all different cooldowns, so it doesn't really align very well. And then when you're trying to line it up with your Vanish windows also on top of that, it just got like really annoying in terms of trying to get things going. So I think this is fine. Another change to try and reduce complexity is Alacrity is just flat haste rather than based on combo points. This is likely, just giving you more high flat value. So if you're good at playing around this and maintaining it, now you won't be able to have that as a skill differing factor, which means players who are bad at it will be able to play just as good as you now because it's not a mechanic, right? So it's like trying to lower the skill ceiling and bring the most advanced player closer to the beginner or the returning player, which has been one of their goals. I still feel like you do have a lot of keybinds just it's mostly just Thistle Tea, even though I really like Thistle Tea's effect. It still does feel like it's quite a lot, especially when you start to throw, at least in PvP situations, when you start to throw Shiv as a bit more of a high priority kind of rotational ability. Things start to get a lot more cumbersome. I think a lot of Assassination Rogues are going to be happy with the changes to Deathstalker's Mark, which is now just Garrote is going to apply it. I think that's great. You just get 3 stacks of it right away, so you're going to get some big value there, which is just very nice. They have not put the new hero talents in yet for this, and some of the patch notes don't align with what's in the game right now, so it's a little bit hard to give you like an exact overview or coverage of a lot of those specific examples, but their main goal is to reduce the complexity, reduce the barrier of entry, try and address some of the pain points that Assassination Rogue has had in development up to this point, which likely they're going to achieve. I'm curious to see how Crimson Tempest plays out. Again, because it's such a limited range in situations where, like PvP, I don't know if you're going to use this. And it's only onto 2 other enemies. It's not like it's like a, what's the rip talent that I'm spacing out on for Feral Druid, where you just get rip on everything. This it just seems a little bit weaker, maybe a little bit more awkward possibly when you're attacking. So let's just go on the training dummy and just see how annoying it is to actually get that bleed application. So we're going to get Deathstalker's Mark from Garrote. Of course, Garrote's not on my bar, so we got to put this on my bar really quick. Where's Garrote? There's no way. Garrote is just missing, dude. This is why I'm glad they added a search bar. So you can just, there we go. We get the Garrote window. We get bleeds up. And then when we press Crimson Tempest, it applies it to those other 2 targets. So really good for 3 target cleave situations. Just gives you immediate access to that. And then obviously we have the Deathmark window, which is no longer going to spam a bunch of debuffs on the target. It's just going to be able to send it. And you can just focus in on one target and just spread those bleeds to the other targets without ever detargeting, which honestly, this does feel nice. I take it back. This does feel nice in cleave situations. It feels really nice. And then you can focus more on your envenoms, right? Because you're just going to be able to use this to build combo points and spread bleeds, and you can really focus in on the envenom window. So I was a little bit critical of this initially, but actually ultimately I think it does actually feel a bit better. I feel a little bit energy starved at the moment. Obviously I'm lower level. I don't have access to all of the talents and things like that. But I take it back. It does feel nice. It does feel nice being able to just focus in on one target, spread those bleeds, focus on building up on one target, although the energy, it's significantly lower. Also, I guess maybe they also wanted to lower the importance. Hey, wait, now I know why my energy is low. It's because I don't have poisons on. This will make a lot more sense. Now I'm curious to see where the bleed spread, is it going to work very well? Does this apply poisons also to other targets? Yeah, it does. Okay, so you'll get the full venomous wounds. I was wondering why my energy regen was so scrapped, and it's just because I didn't have poisons on. Okay, I think this feels fine. I mean, it's very straightforward, honestly, especially in like a PvE situation, even a PvP situation. The energy regen feels a little bit starved. You don't have to worry about alacrity anymore and trying to maintain those stacks. It's not bad. It's not bad, honestly. It's not bad. I'm not playing Subterfuge, obviously, but I actually think it's fine. It's a lot more straightforward. Still has maybe a little bit more steps than a lot of other melee DPS, but I like the update to Deathmark, the Deathstalker's Mark, so you can just focus in on Garrotes and maintaining bleeds, and it's a lot more streamlined. It's a lot more just build up, get to envenoms, keep bleeds, and spread them for free with the new Crimson Tempest. I could see that working pretty well here. Doesn't feel like super keybind bloated in that regard. So I think this is pretty good so far, just as like an initial glance, and considering the patch notes don't completely align with what's in the game at the moment, and this is like a first iteration of it, and it's going to be moving forward. I think that feels pretty decent, regardless of what my initial opinions were. Regardless of my initial opinions, I think that feels pretty decent. I believe they've adjusted other things like Caustic Spatter as well, so that it doesn't apply for Mutilate. So again, you can just focus on the Envenom, focus on the Kingsbane, focus on your finishers. So you don't have like these awkward, like, you have to use this ability that is not the fun one you want to press right now in order to get this effect to activate. You don't have to do any of that stuff anymore, which is nice. And that felt pretty straightforward. I feel like that would be actually pretty fun in Mythic Plus. Just Fan of Knives, bleeds up, Crimson Tempest, spread them, Fan of Knives. I think that's pretty cool. And then you're going to have like Poison Bomb be a little bit more effective with 1-point talent. So you can get kind of your AoE kind of cleave out of Envenom, it seems like. Maybe, and most of your AoE damage is going to come from your Fan of Knives, because you don't have like an AoE spender anymore. You just have an AoE kind of like cleaver, but you'll have big bleeds on a target that get cleaved to everything, which will feel really strong likely. Okay, so it's pretty interesting. Supercharger, it looks like it's also changed. It's off Kingsbane. So again, just focus in on Kingsbane, Envenom, big bleed windows, spread bleeds. A little bit less punishing if you're not very well. Honestly, now it's easier to maintain bleeds with Crimson Tempest, so maybe that's why they reduced the effectiveness of your energy regen. It would just scale too high, and now they're focusing on your Envenom window a lot more. It seems to be kind of the big deal for it. I'm curious to see where it goes. I believe we're entering like the more top level testing phases now for the alpha as well. So hopefully I'll be able to get some actual gameplay, like actual PvP and actual dungeons moving forward from this point. Because obviously it's fun to be looking at the talents and looking at the patch notes and stuff, but it's also like, how does it feel when you're actually playing it in a real life situation? Ironically, in game, a real life situation, as opposed to just kind of theory crafting this. But I can see what their goal is, their intent of it. I think it's likely going to feel a lot better and a lot more clear in terms of your objectives and your goals, and your rotations smoothed out a little bit there, with Crimson Tempest becoming a builder as opposed to a spender. So overall, I think it's a decent rework so far, and we'll have to kind of wait and see where it goes from here. So thank you guys very much for watching the video. I hope you guys enjoyed the deep dive, and I will see you in the next one.